Hi, I'm Roy Collin, and I'm the creator of the podcast. You can find everything about me and the five podcasts on bio.link/podcaster, and you'll find it in the QR code there. I'd also like to thank my sponsors. If you or someone you know is struggling with anxiety and want to know how to be 100% anxiety free in 6 weeks without therapy or drugs, Daniel Packard Anxiety Solution Program Company offers a 6 weeks system that permanently solves anxiety at an astounding 90% success rate. People who join the program only pay at the end once they have clear, measurable results. If you're interested in learning more, go to permanentanxietysolutions.com where you can book a free consultation with Daniel. Do you have high blood pressure and want to get off the meds? Doctors are amazed at what Zona Plus can do. Get a $50 discount with my code ROY. Go to zona.com/discount/ROY and you see the QR code for all my sponsors down at the end. Quality Polish manufacturer of metal products for telecommunication and workshop equipment and other metals. If you'd like a brochure, you see it in the QR code, and you just let us know if you would like a quotation shipped internationally and very competitive rates. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast.
Welcome to the Awakening Podcast. You'll find other episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. My guest today from the UK, Functional Medicine Practitioner, a CHEK Practitioner, that's a CHEK, CHEK Faculty Instructor, Active Release Techniques Therapist, and he's an author. I think is it 5 books, and also, which I love, a podcast. 6. Brilliant. So please welcome Leigh Brandon.
Roy, thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Yeah, well, looking forward to this because it's I always like talking about health, and it's normally a case of sometimes it's kind of someone's own journey that we experience something and then we realize, hey, this doesn't seem right. So I suppose, I mean, I've mentioned the bullet points, but you might kind of introduce yourself a bit more, but also kind of tell your story, how you got into all this.
Yeah, so I guess I need to go back to when I was 13 years old. Really, it's the start of the story. And I'll never forget, I was sat on the sofa one Sunday evening, sat in between my parents, and my mum said, "Oh, you've got blackheads on your nose." Didn't really think much of it. And my dad said, "Oh, yeah." And then they spent the next hour like squeezing my nose, squeezing all these blackheads off my nose. I didn't really think much of it. I just thought, oh, this is what happens when you're a teenager, right? It's kind of normal thing. But then over the next few weeks, things just got worse and worse and worse, and they were getting really bad. And there was a friend of mine at school, and his acne started a little bit before mine, so I kind of could see where I was going, kind of thing. And you start with Clearasil. You see the adverts on TV. Oh, use Clearasil, your acne goes away. Well, that wasn't my experience, and it wasn't the experience of my friend either. We used Clearasil, it just continued to get worse. All it did was kind of dry the skin, and didn't really do anything. So my mum took me to the doctor, the GP, and he said, well, like, what I need to do, I need to give you some cream and a cleanser. So I went away, used this cream and a cleanser. Didn't really make a difference. Like the cleanser was really drying my skin out, but then when it got dry, oil would start to pour out the pores of my skin. So obviously it's trying to moisturize the skin because it's dry. So that extra oil was making my acne worse. So that went on for a few weeks or months. Mum took me back to the doctor and he said, well, now I'm going to have to put you on antibiotics. So I was like, okay, well, if that's going to work, I'll do it. So now I'm taking the cream, the cleanser, and the antibiotics. And actually, my skin got better for about 6 weeks. And then it came back. And then that continued for 18 years. And I would go back to the doctor and he'd say, oh, your acne's back. Oh, I just need to give you another antibiotic. Right? So all this time, I'm doing everything my doctors told me to do. And all that's happening to my skin is it's actually getting worse over time. Now, when I spent a lot of time in the sun, my skin would clear up, which was interesting. But whenever I wasn't spending a lot of time in the sun, my skin would be pretty bad. And it would be so bad that some days I'd have lumps on my head, like the size of half a golf ball, and they'd be bright red, and people look at you like you're a freak, So imagine what that does to someone's self-esteem and confidence when they're a teenager or in their early 20s, right? So
Plus
that was
the
my,
cruelty of kind of teenagers as well, like, because they don't kind of,
oh
understand that, and they'll just insult you, which makes
yeah,
it 100
my
times
nickname
worse.
at school was Zit, right? You know, so I mean, you know, I wouldn't feel sorry for me for that, because you know what teenagers are like. You give it as much as you take it, right? You know, if someone's got a big nose, they're called big nose. If they wear glasses, they're four eyes. You know, so I gave as good as I got. So don't feel sorry for me for that. But you know, think about, you know, you're a teenager, you're in your 20s. You know, you want to go out, you want to meet girls. If your face is looking absolutely awful, you're not going to be attractive to any woman, right? So anyway, so this kind of pharmaceutical merry-go-round continued for about 18 years. When I was 26, 27, I decided to change careers. So I went from working in IT to working in health and wellness. So I started off as a personal trainer in 1996. I would have been 27 then. And I did that for 5 years. And then I started to learn from a guy called Paul CHEK, who started the CHEK Institute. And one of the first workshops I ever saw him do was at Loughborough University in England. And he started talking about hormones and food sensitivities and how they can have an effect on your skin. And I'm sat there and these light bulbs are going off in my head, and I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. My doctor's never mentioned food. In fact, my doctor denied that food had a relationship with acne. And he said that many times, because my mum kept saying, oh, am I feeding him the wrong foods? And he's like, no. Acne's got absolutely nothing to do with diet. And this guy, Paul CHEK, saying, well, yeah, if you've got a food sensitivity, if you're eating the wrong foods, it's causing a hormone imbalance that can cause skin problems like acne and eczema. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, hang on a minute, maybe he's onto something here. So I went to see a guy local to where I was working at the time, and he ran loads and loads of tests on me. And he said, first things first, you've got to stop taking antibiotics. And I said, but hang on a minute, my doctor's told me I need to take them. And I thought, well, if I stop taking them, my acne's going to get even worse. He's like, no, you need to stop taking them. So I was like, okay. And he said, second thing is you've got a fungal infection. So I'm going to put you on an antifungal diet. And then he gave me a list of foods that I was sensitive to, which means your immune system is attacking. So things like gluten, dairy. I remember there was garden peas, black pepper. You know, it was a long list. And he said, look, you can't eat these. You've got to go on this antifungal diet. So it was a very restrictive diet. But I was in that position where I would just do anything. I would do anything to get rid of this nightmare that was on my face, my chest, and my back, actually. It wasn't just my face. So I'm someone that when someone says to do something and I think it's the right thing to do, I do it 100%. I don't mess around. You know, I don't pussyfoot around. I went home and I just literally cleared my kitchen out. Cleared every cupboard in the kitchen. Got all these new foods in. And 2 weeks later, my skin was clear.
Wow.
Right? After 18 years of my doctor telling me diet's got nothing to do with acne. And all you need to do is to use these creams and these lotions, which were awful on my skin. And, you know, take these antibiotics, which were also, what I know now, killing all the good bacteria in my gut, which is absolutely essential to your overall health. Right? So it's amazing. You know, I managed to stay in really good shape during those 18 years through, you know, sport and lifting weights and eating as well as I thought I could. So that was kind of my journey. I mean, I've continued studying ever since. You know, I've been studying health, wellness, performance to some degree, I would say since 1992. So, you know, 30 plus years. And I'm still studying now. You know, I've just got a thirst for knowledge. But what I've done is in my practice is that because I'm really aware of how debilitating it can be to have acne, to suffer from acne, that I thought, well, why don't I help the same people? You know, I was them 20, 30 years ago. I want to now go back and help those people because I've been through that myself. I know how awful it is to live through that. So I thought, well, let me help these people. And what has been really frustrating for me, so I'll join like a Facebook group, like an acne Facebook group. And all I hear is, what product should I get? Should I take this drug? Should I take that drug? And the reason that frustrates me is because that's not ever going to solve your problem in the long term. And if it does solve your problem, it's going to cause another one. So what I mean by that is, it's not getting to the root cause, right? It's just treating the symptoms. So analogy that I talk about in my latest book, which is called Eliminating Adult Acne for Good, actually arrived about an hour before we started recording today, the first copy. What I talk about in the book is, you know, an analogy that I use. Imagine you're on a rowing boat in a lake, right? And all of a sudden, the boat springs a leak. Water's coming in, right? If you don't do something, the boat's going to sink. You're going to get wet, right? So what do? You've got two choices. You can find the leak and block the hole, right? And repair the boat. Now the boat's fixed, no more water's coming in. Or you can sit there and get a bucket and pour the water out as it's coming in, right? Well, that's a never-ending job, isn't it? Right? If the water's coming in, you're going to forever be pouring this water over the edge of the boat. Well, if you compare that to the approach to treating people with acne, well, the medical model is telling you to keep pouring the water out, right? The approach that I use is using a natural, holistic approach. Teaches you to find the leak and to mend the leak, so there's no more water coming in. So now you don't have to keep pouring the water out constantly. But the reason the medical system treats it that way is because obviously they hold hands very closely to the pharmaceutical industry. And how did the pharmaceutical industry make money? Well, they make money by ensuring people that they stay sick. They don't want to cure disease, because if no one's diseased, they can't sell any products, right? Because the pharmaceutical industry, their number one priority is for their shareholders to make money. Their priority is not to their customers, which is how they look at us. Their priority is not to optimize health outcomes. Their priority is to optimize profit. So when I see,
did you ever think that you'd see drug dealers in white coats? Did you?
That's pretty much what we have, right? So I just get really frustrated when I see people talking on social media sites saying, "Oh, should I go back on the female hormone contraceptive?" Or
yeah, I remember a girlfriend that I was with. She had acne problems, and that's what they made her do: go on the pill.
Yeah, and you know, again, in my book, there's a chapter called "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly," right? And basically, what I've done is I've broken down each of the pharmaceutical products that are recommended for people with acne, and stated, okay, so what do they do? What's the good bit about them? But then I've listed, and this is from the UK's NHS or National Health Service website, what are the potential side effects of each of these? And let me just say, it's quite a big chapter, and most of it is the side effects from those medications. Now, I don't remember them all off the top of my head because there's just so many, but you know, they include breast cancer, they include suicidal thoughts. You know, there are skin redness. It's like, well, hang on a minute, you just want to swap one skin problem for another. You know, and what we do know is that, you know, all pharmaceuticals to a degree are toxic. So if you're taking them over a period of time, you're creating toxicity in the body. And this is another interesting thing, is that in some instances, the cause of someone's acne is toxicity. So if you have a high level of toxicity in the body, and what the body tends to do is what we call bioaccumulate toxins. And when we do that, and this is all mammals, by the way, what we tend to do is we store toxins in our fat cells. And the reason we do that is because it can be quite dangerous if our toxins start to attack, say, our organs or our glands or our nerves. So we store it in fat cells where it doesn't really cause too much of a problem. But once you get to a certain amount, now the system of detoxification in the body becomes overloaded. Now, the skin is also an organ of detoxification, and it also happens to be the biggest organ in the body. So sometimes if, say, the liver is backed up or it's sluggish, it just can't cope with all these toxins in the body, what the body will attempt to do is purge the toxins through the skin, and that in itself can cause breakouts. So you're taking all these medications to deal with acne, but the medication in itself could eventually cause acne as well. So it's really a merry-go-round. So as I say, it's really frustrating when I see all these people saying, but I've tried everything and nothing's worked. When in reality, what they've tried is what their doctors told them. Right? And, I just get really, really frustrated because I know there's help out there. It's not just me. There's loads, there's hundreds of really good, naturopaths, nutritionists, functional medicine practitioners who can help people. But people aren't being pointed in the right direction. And this is only my experience, and I don't want to speak ill of any particular profession, but from my experience with acne, dermatologists don't seem to be able to help very well. The amount of people that come to me that have already been to a dermatologist and they didn't help them at all is quite high. And again, when you look at it, it's like, well, and again, I talk about it in the book, I don't blame these people. I don't blame the doctors. I don't blame dermatologists. What I do blame is their training, because they're in a system that is heavily incentivized to sell pharmaceuticals. And as we know, the pharmaceutical companies also have a big stake in the curriculum of medical training as well.
The thing is with that, like, I know from a lot of cases, somebody would go to the doctor and they're going for some other ailment and they go, oh, I cured this by, like, for example, your situation. And instead of the doctor going, wow, brilliant, no, I've got new information, I'm going to share that with the world, good for you. Next person that comes in, they'll do the exact same thing. Yeah. So they're loyal to the dollar. And there's there's a few break away from the system. And like, I've even investigated how much natural treatments that they go through, foods and stuff like that. They don't get any learning like that. I mean, they're doing 7 years. There's one, I think it's Albania, gets like 6 months, but the rest of them don't. And it comes down to they're loyal to the dollar, because no person could say, you've just told me this. Like, for example, there's another thing. I know, like, I got hemorrhoids once and I went away and I started checking it out. And I've heard of loads of people, creams for years and getting operations and everything. And I just started researching garlic into a bucket, boiling water, done, gone, never back. And I mean, if I can go in and find that out, why aren't they telling people to do that instead of getting costly operations, instead of creams, instead of making them through pain? Like, some people can't even sit down. I know it's on the time, but everything is like that. It's so sad how the whole system works. And I think the problem is people, they're trusting their government, they're trusting the policeman, and they're trusting the doctor, when the reality is there's very few people actually have your back. And you have to take it into yourself. You have to look after your health like you did. You just kind of, you didn't accept. And like, one of the things that you mentioned, and like, when I was younger, I mean, I grew up in the 70s, like, we were sick a lot. It was like antibiotics was just, they wouldn't even look at you. Antibiotics. And I was sick constantly. And I know that was the same for a lot of people in the area. And as you said, it destroys your gut bacteria, which you need.
Yeah.
Do they tell you that? No. Do they know that? I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I'm actually not that sure that they do know the harms, because I think, and again, this is obviously, I've been doing what I do for 27 years now, and you get clients come to you and they say, oh, my doctor put me on these antibiotics, and you discuss it, and they say, oh yeah, well once you finish antibiotics, your gut microbiome just goes back to normal. Really? Are you sure about that? You know, I mean, what we do know is, and again, I've looked at the research papers on this. Every subsequent round of antibiotics you have, the recovery time of your gut microbiome gets longer and longer, and you can get to a point where you could find that you have certain species in your gut that is now extinct. It won't ever come back in your gut unless you have a fecal transplant, which, again, the pharmaceutical industries don't seem too keen on, right?
Because but I've only recently heard about that, and I heard it's supposed to be very beneficial for people. I know it sounds disgusting, and you would kind of think, how in the name of God could that work? But when you understand what you've just said, that some of them are actually dead and you need them back in your body, it makes total sense.
Yeah, there's a great movie actually called Invisible Extinction, and it kind of discusses the importance of the microbiome in the body, not just in humans but in animals as well. Because again, a lot of people are unaware that they give farm animals a lot of antibiotics because it makes them sick and it makes them fat, which makes them more profitable. Because they don't do body fat analysis on a cow before they sell it. It's just how heavy is it, right? You pay by the pound or the kilo. So I forgot where I was going.
No, but just on that, because I've actually heard of somebody that got the transplant, they kept eating the same thing and they lost loads of weight because the person that got it was in healthy condition.
Yeah.
And that's kind of amazing when you see people what they go through to actually kind of lose weight.
Yeah, well, again, in the movie Invisible Extinction, there's a lady who she gets the infection Clostridium difficile, and in the US, that's the only infection that they allow people to get the fecal transplants for, and it's it can be a nasty infection. So the lady in the movie, she got a fecal transplant from her daughter, and her daughter was overweight. Now the mother was in amazing shape, absolutely phenomenal shape. She looked like a professional athlete. Well, after the transplant, the infection was gone, but within weeks she became obese, and no matter what she did, she could not get the weight off. That shows you how important,
exactly.
That shows you how important your microbiome is. So when doctors are dishing out antibiotics to people with acne, I do think in that instance, especially when they do it long term like they did with me, I don't think they understand the implications of that, because I've spent the last 2 decades trying to re-heal my gut. And I know every time I've measured my gut microbiome, there's one particular bacteria that's quite important called Akkermansia. I just don't have any. I just don't have any. Now, some people might say, well, it's genetic. Maybe you shouldn't have it anyway. But I'm sure all the antibiotics I took probably didn't do it any good.
Unbelievable. And a lot of people then, they have sleep issues, and a lot comes back to the gut, which is all kind of connected, and they don't even realize that. And then the doctors are giving them sleeping tablets, and they love these kind of tablets, whether it's blood pressure or whatever, because it's like patient for life. And the checks keep coming from the pharma.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when the deeper you look into how the medical pharmaceutical establishment work hand in hand, the more, I guess, pessimistic you have to be for the health of a nation. I mean, if you look at the USA as an example, they pay by far the most per capita in medical care. They have the highest number of infant deaths in the world. They have the highest number of autoimmune diseases in the world. They have the fastest declining what's the term? Average lifespan. Theirs is declining quicker than any other nation on the planet. What does that tell you? They have a sick care system. They don't have a health system, right? But
their insurance,
I mean,
I don't know you aware, but I mean, maybe some of the listeners aren't aware. Loads of people in America go bankrupt because of the medical bills, and the insurance is so high.
Yeah.
And I've even saw something recently that it was like something that the woman could have got the medication for $4. Your man is making $2 on it. but they charge them 10 because of the Medicare thing. And it's just so, it's like in one hand and out the other. And the people don't realize it, unfortunately, but it is a sickness industry.
Yeah, for sure. And what you were saying earlier about, only you can heal you, right? Now, I'm in the business of helping people heal themselves. I don't heal people. All I do is I give people the right information to help them heal themselves. So I might do, a number of different analyses on people, and I don't just work with people with acne, I work with other issues, but I might run a series of tests, assessments, because ultimately I want to know what the root cause of the problem is. And the medical model is not interested in the root cause because it's not interested in the cure, right? Another thing that I always try and get across to people is, depending on who you listen to, humans have been on this planet for at least 6 million years. So we've done pretty good so far, right? Well, we only started using chemical fertilizers in 1919. So about 100 years ago. Up until that point, the only thing that existed was organic food, right? And if you look at the modern world, the further you move away from how we evolved, the more sickness you'll find. So if you go to Africa and you study pure hunter-gatherer tribes, you won't find heart disease, you won't find cancer, you won't find diabetes, you won't find obesity. You might find a guy in his 60s and he's still got 10% body fat, because they're living in alignment with how human beings have evolved. And that's one of the things I do with people, is I try and help them live in alignment with nature as much as they can.
I think it's the Wheel of Fortune, the Hunza in the Himalayas, all living to over 100. Which is like, there's no hospitals nearby. There's no doctor trying to throw them, and they're just doing crop rotation and everything. And when you see that, you kind of go, But unfortunately, people are brainwashed, and like, especially in the US, I think it's New Zealand, they're constantly putting the adverts, and I see it in Poland. I mean, I don't watch normal television, but I mean, it's everywhere. They're just brainwashing people. You listen to the radio, and as soon as the ads come on, you have to turn it off, because it's just like pharmaceutical. And the thing is, it's like Speedy Gonzales when they're given the side effects that, like, you could even half slow it down, you still wouldn't understand it. I mean, how is that legal? I mean, just listening to that. And I remember, I think it was in Entrepreneur magazine. I used to be subscribed to that for years. And I remember seeing the Viagra, and it was 2 pages of side effects. And I was like, I mean, I never took it in my life. And I was like, who in their right mind would actually want to take this when you look at the side effects?
Yeah. And again, when you look at that situation, why do men even get into that place where, they can't raise the smile, so to speak, right? It's because they're living out of alignment with nature. It's normally because they're eating a bad diet, they're running around stressed the whole time, because stress in itself will do that to a man. If they just took some time out, ate some good food, made sure they rested, got to bed on time rather than staying out late, all those things, they wouldn't need Viagra, right? There's no excuse for it. I mean, we know of men in their 70s that have fathered children. Why are guys in their 30s and 40s, even 20s, needing Viagra? It's telling, so symptoms are a warning sign. So they're actually there for a good reason. A symptom, and acne is a symptom, erectile dysfunction is a symptom, right? Symptoms are there because your subconscious mind is trying to make your conscious mind aware of an imbalance in the body. And it's through that awareness you can do something about it. So another example, if you're in your kitchen and you've left your hob on and you accidentally put your hand on it, your hand's going to come off it really quickly because of the heat, right? Well, that was your subconscious mind making your conscious mind aware that your hand was on a hot plate, and if you didn't move it quick, your hand was going to melt, right? So whenever we get a symptom, we need to say, okay, so what is my body trying to tell me? What is out of balance? But what we have a system that says, well, we must mask that symptom. So that's a bit like, say you were driving along in your car and the engine warning light comes on the dashboard. What's that telling you? Well, it's telling you there's a problem with the engine. Take it to your nearest mechanic and let them have a look and fix it, right? The medical model says, don't worry about fixing the problem.
Put a piece of black tape over it so you don't see it.
Yeah, right. So what happens to the engine? It just gets worse and worse and worse till eventually it conks out and it's no good. Well, the same happens with us. If we keep ignoring our engine warning lights or our symptoms, all that's going to happen is whatever the underlying cause is going to get worse and worse and worse. So, what I often say to people with acne, as horrible as acne can be, right, destroys your self-confidence and your self-esteem. I mean, it can cost you money as well. Maybe I'll come back to that. But, what tends to happen is that because you have acne, it's actually a blessing. It's saying to you, there's something going on internally that's out of balance. You need to find out what it is that's going wrong and correct that. Because if you don't, what can happen is that can become a much worse condition. So the things that cause acne, if you leave them for long enough, if you left them for a few decades, it might not be a skin issue, it might be a heart issue, it could be a cancer. So by having acne, it gives you that opportunity to get yourself healthy from the inside out.
Like you touch on kind of chronic pain as well. Yeah, it's not just because like my own journey, right? What happened, and I think it was stress related as well. I think everything is in the body; it's not from the mind. And I was working like 8 a.m. till 12 at night on a construction, running a big project. I was thrown into the deep end. It was wrong on their side, the company side, and eventually my back went. I was getting like a trapped nerve, so-called sciatica. And I was trying everything. I tried all the natural stuff, like I was, going to a physiotherapist, acupuncture, which kind of helped a little bit, but chiropractor and all that. And then eventually they said, oh, you need an epidural. And trusting the doctors. And like even prior to that, actually, the tablets they were giving me, painkillers, I remember I was bouncing. Like I was out of my head from them. Like, and that scared me. So they gave me the epidural and, you knock you out. And when I woke up, it's a horrible feeling. Actually, I remember I was like trying to get up and you're just paralyzed from the chest. That was like a really scary feeling. But I was then getting pains down the other side. So it was supposed to manipulate your body when you're under, and that didn't work. So then they said you get a surgery. And I mean, I was at my wit's end. Like you're just in constant pain. Like you can't sleep, you can't do anything. Got the surgery. They say, oh, your disc is prolapsed. They tell you like MRI scan, they say, oh, look at this. You believe them. They're the doctors. They're the surgeons. They know what they're doing. Got the operation. And I was the exact same. And I was like ready to throw in the towel. And I came across a book called Healing Back Pain by Dr. John Sarno. Read it. I even forget what it was because it was over 20 years ago. I think it was around 24 or something like that. 51 now. So it was like going back a long time. And it cured me within 2 weeks. And I told over 20 people, because some people get that down the arm, they've all been cured from it. And it just pissed me off so much that I had to go through all the pain, all the costs, everything, when none of it was needed.
Yeah, and I see that a lot in my own work. So I do work with people with lumbar disc issues, and they might come to me at the point where they're saying, well, I've just been told, I need surgery. What do you think? And, sometimes that might be the best option. There's always risks and benefits. But what I would say to them is, was your back caused by a lack of surgery? Was that the root cause of the problem? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you could go and have the surgery, but unless you correct what caused it in the first place, the likelihood is the pain is going to come back. So don't think the surgery on its own is going to fix the problem. It may do in the short term, but in the long term, it might cause more problems. And what I often find is people, they come back after surgery and now they've got scar tissue, and now that's causing pain. But it's scar tissue that's deep inside, which is very difficult to get to, right? So again, that's just another example of how the medical system does not want to find the root cause of the problem. And finding the root cause is often not easy, right? Opening someone up and cutting something out, okay, you need skill, and you need hands-on skill to do that, and to stitch it up and all that, of course. But that's a pretty simple process compared to, okay, well, I need to go away and find out what the root cause of the problem is. Because sometimes it might not even be a mechanical, physical problem. I've had issues, clients that have come to me with pain, and it's because of an emotional issue, and the emotion has got trapped in the body and causing pain. So you've got to be a little bit of a jack of all trades to do what I do, and that's why I've been studying for 30 years, because there's so many different potential causes, and that's the same with acne. So again, I talk about it in my book. The medical system, they'll tell you the reason people have got acne is because their skin's producing excess sebum, so that's the oil that moisturizes the skin. The hair follicle gets blocked. The bacteria that's called Cutibacterium acnes starts to feed on all these skin cells and this excess oil. That then causes an immune response, which creates inflammation. Right, so that's their view on what causes acne, and I don't disagree with that. There are some people that do disagree, by the way. But just looking at that, I mean, there's more causes as well. But just looking at the kind of, let's call it the medical model, they still don't look at, well, why is the body producing too much sebum? Why is it increasing the production of skin cells? Right? They just say, oh, that's the problem. Let's treat the problem. So they might give someone a drug to reduce sebum production, so that the quite well-known product Accutane, it's now called isotretinoin, is very effective at treating acne. Not 100%, but what it does is it actually stops the sebaceous glands secreting sebum. So now you've got dry skin for the rest of your life. Now you've probably got you've got another skin problem, right? Whereas I look at it, and I've read hundreds of research papers on it, and there are so many reasons. There are so many reasons why the body might start producing more sebum, or might start producing excess skin cells. And one of the things is androgens. And again, the medical model agree with that. But then the question is, well, what's causing androgens to increase? So androgens, male hormones. Well, the number one reason why androgens increase is diet, right? The very thing that my doctor was asked several times, and he said, no, diet's got absolutely nothing to do with acne. But yet there are hundreds of research papers talking about how things like high glycemic foods, so high glycemic means it increases blood sugar very quickly after you've eaten something. So high sugar foods or high starch foods. Dairy is another one. So there are other hormones as well. So insulin's another hormone. When that's increased, that stimulates sebaceous glands, so the sebum production. But there's another hormone in dairy called IGF-1, so it's insulin-like growth factor 1. So you've got insulin, IGF-1, testosterone. There's another form of testosterone called DHT, or dihydrotestosterone, which is 10 times more potent than normal testosterone. If those levels go up, now you've got more sebum, you've got more skin cells, which are almost certainly going to lead to acne. So high glycemic foods, high sugary foods, and dairy, and again, there's tons of research on this. We know that they increase sebum, they increase skin cell production. So again, it's quite interesting, isn't it, that, you know, even on the NHS website, it says acne myth. And it goes on to say there is absolutely no link between diet and acne. That's on the NHS website. But then if you go to PubMed and you do a search, you'll find hundreds of research papers saying the opposite. You know, so that's kind of one cause of acne, which is diet, and I talk about that a lot in my book. And when I'm working with clients, you know, there are certain things that I generally suggest, you know, just take it out of your diet. You know, it's
you
worth
mentioned the
doing.
dairy there, because I think that's very well, because I think a lot of my problems were down to the dairy as well. And now that you've like the growth hormones, which we know, the antibiotics that they just pump these animals with because they're so sick, they just keel over. So that's why they do that, which in turn then goes into the drink. But like I was showing my youngest son, he's like 9. I was showing him like the cheese. I was like, don't be eating this. And it's like, you lied it. It's plastic. There's plastic inside it. And people are buying that and putting it into their bodies. They know that.
Yeah.
And like all of the foods, there's very few. Like even recently, like I try to get as much organic as I can. I'll get the organic eggs from the farmer and everything. But say the apples. So I'll say apples I buy in the supermarket, Lidl say, which is in the UK as well. I'd get the organic apples. And then I got apples in from the farmer last week. And I was like, it brought me back to my childhood. I said, these are totally different. You throw out the organic ones if they're not clean. The birds don't eat them. The insects don't eat them. You throw out the farmers' ones, they're gone straight away.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know what toxins are in it, but you can't even trust organic branding now.
Yeah.
That's the scary part.
Yeah, they're probably covered in a kind of a wax or something that you know, you can taste it, the animals don't want it. But the other thing as well, when you look at dairy, what's the purpose of dairy? It's to promote growth in baby mammals. That's what it's for, right? Now, I'm not saying dairy can't be nutritious. It can be, particularly if it's, as you say, organic, if it's not pasteurized, if it's not homogenized, then it can be very nutritious. But a lot of people don't have the enzymes to break down the sugar in the milk, lactose. So the enzyme's called lactase. A lot of people just don't have it. So number one, you can't digest it properly. That's going to cause a problem in the body. But for people with acne, I always advise them to stay off of dairy. Some people can get away with butter. That's slightly different. But certainly milk, cream, yogurt, because it not only has IGF-1 in it, but it also stimulates insulin and IGF-1 production in our own bodies. So I definitely would recommend people stay away from that if they've got acne. But another thing that's really important to talk about, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, was toxicity as well. So toxicity is another big thing with acne. So heavy metals is a big issue in today's society. There's heavy metals everywhere. You know, in our fillings, you know, if you've got a metal filling in your mouth, there's going to be mercury and other heavy metals in your mouth.
Just on that before you continue, because I had 4 of them, and when I got them removed, they put rubber, because I've heard how dangerous they were. It was like a rubber, it was like a balloon in all intents and purposes.
They call it a dam, rubber dam.
And it was like putting a hoover into my mouth to make sure none of, and I'm like, there's always little particles breaking off of everything. And that's the extra, to make sure that nothing goes into your body. It just shows how dangerous that they were. And they knew that as well. That's the scary part.
Yeah, I mean, I had 5 metal fillings and a root canal, which was also metal, by the time I was 15. Now, luckily, I've never needed a filling since. But I had all mine out over a period of a few years. I didn't do it all in one go. But when I had the root canal removed, so I couldn't replace it. You have to take the whole thing out. You know, I was put on a vitamin C intravenous drip to try and help detoxify if anything did actually get in there. And that was just removed. That wasn't cut out and replaced. It was completely removed. So heavy metals, so things like mercury, cadmium is another one that's kind of, we know they can cause acne. And I had a particular client, and again, I tell a story in the book. that, you know, she came to me when she was 27, had never had acne in her life. She'd pretty much eaten whatever she wanted. I think she was a bit of a chocolate lover. Never had any issue with her skin. You know, she was in good shape. She looked, you know, pretty fit. She played sport, and all of a sudden her skin had broken out, and she was panicking because she was getting married in about 6 months' time, and she was like, I can't look like this on my wedding day. Like, you know, she was, I wouldn't say suicidal, but she wasn't in a good place mentally. And so I started the process of changing her diet a little bit, and improved a little bit, but, you know, still wasn't where she wanted it to be. So I ran a test to see what was going on in her gut. It showed up a few things, but not a great deal. But again, just did some work on that to improve that. That got a little bit better, but it still wasn't anywhere near where she wanted it to be. And I just happened to say, look, I think we should run a heavy metals test just to see if there's any heavy metals that are part of the problem. So she did a blood test, and it came back, and her levels of mercury in her blood were literally off the chart, literally. I'd never seen that before. So I ended up suggesting she used a supplement. It's called liposomal L-glutathione. And within, I think it was 3 to 4 weeks, if I remember right, completely back to normal. So you see how it's really important to find the root cause, because, you know, if I hadn't have suggested, oh, let's do a heavy metals test, she could have gone round in circles for a very long time. You know,
and did she know how she got so much metals into her body?
Good question. I was just going to come on to that. So she said to me, how on earth how has that happened? Like, how can I have so much mercury in my blood? And I said, well, the most common thing is if people eat a lot of fish, particularly tuna, because tuna is very high in mercury. And she just looked at me and she said, I've been eating tuna every day for lunch for about 10 years. Right?
When I heard about the tuna thing, I never got it ever again since.
Yeah. I mean, I eat it very rarely. I certainly haven't had it this year. I mean, I do like tuna. I mean, if people like tuna, they want it maybe once a week, I'd say have it, but I would take it with what's called a binder. So something like chlorella can be really good. And what that does is that binds to the metal in your gut, and it actually helps you excrete it. But yeah, I wouldn't eat it on a regular basis. But yeah, maybe once a week if you really like tuna, I would say it's okay, but just make sure you have it with a binder. The other thing that's quite interesting as well, I found doing my research into the book, was the pH level on the skin actually plays a really important role in any skin condition, but particularly acne. So your skin ideally wants to be slightly acidic. Like, most people think of acidic and think, oh, that's a bad thing, right? But different areas of our body have optimum levels of pH, so acid alkaline balance. So for instance, our stomach is really high acidic. It has to be, because its job is to break down proteins when they come in from your food. And it also, you want it to be killing pathogens, bacteria, you know, pathogenic microbes that come into the body, right? That's their role. You want it to be acidic. Obviously, there are other areas that are more alkaline, but most of the body is either neutral, slightly acidic, or very acidic. And our skin should be slightly acidic, ideally. And what we find is that in people that have acne, their skin is more alkaline. So then the next question is, what causes your skin to be alkaline? Well, interestingly, almost everything that you clean your skin with, like shower gels, soaps, all those kind of things, all tend to be alkaline. Now, what are people told quite often if they have acne? Oh, your skin's dirty, you need to wash more, right? What's that going to do to someone's acne? It's going to make it worse. So, you know, one of the things that I do suggest, and people find it really a bit of an oxymoron, right? They say, what should I put on my face? And I say, water. Don't use any soap. And they say, oh, well, surely it's not going to clean my face. Water's very good at cleaning. You know, okay, if you wear makeup and stuff like that, I mean, I don't wear makeup anymore. I don't wear my high heels at weekends anymore, or anything like that. But you know, just using water is very good at cleansing the skin. There's a lady in the US, her name I'm forgetting, but yeah, I'm forgetting her name. But she says what you should do is you should wash your pits and your bits. Right. So if you're going to use a soap or a shower gel, wash your armpits and your genitals and around your anus, but just let the water clean everything else, because you're going to make your skin too alkaline, and it's really not good for the bacteria that protect your skin. So on our skin, we've got millions and millions and millions of bacteria. So we've got like 1 million bacteria for every square centimeter of skin. If it's too alkaline, those good bacteria that are protecting us don't survive. When you don't have good bacteria, you get bad bacteria, fungi, viruses, etc. now that will proliferate in that area. So your pH of your skin is really important, but also moisturizer is very good, or moisture is very good. Now, something that I absolutely love, and I think it's great for most skin conditions, but again, particularly acne, there is something you can put on your skin that not only helps keep moisture in your skin, it acidifies your skin, but it also cools your skin down. And that's aloe vera gel. It's absolutely fantastic.
And just going back to the shower gel,
yeah.
because I don't think people I think is it sodium lauren sulfate or something like that. It's sodium in all of them. It's basically a degreaser, and it's in all of them to give you that foam, so you think you're actually getting clean. So I get natural stuff that I always order, and I forgot to get, so I got soap, and my skin broke out in a rash straight away because I got a soap, and I thought it'd be better because I was checking the different ones that were there. But like once you start eating healthy and using proper, as you said, the water, maybe the genital areas, but basically when you go back to the old ones, if you've been using it for a few years, immediately your body reacts. It's like the person that goes to McDonald's all the time doesn't really have any reaction. If I go there, like if everything else is shut, and I go there once every 2 years, I'm just feeling terrible. And it's the same thing with soaps and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, sodium lauryl sulfate is an irritant to the skin. And it's also a carcinogen, so it causes cancer as well. They've done studies. Again, this was a pH study on the skin, and they used sodium lauryl sulfate as an irritant. And what they found was people whose skin was more acidic could actually cope with sodium lauryl sulfate on the skin. People whose skin was more alkaline, they tended to get more of a reaction to the sodium lauryl sulfate. So they used it in a research study as an irritant, but yet in almost all products, certainly products bought in big stores, if you look at the ingredients, whether it's shower gel, shampoo, all these things, you'll find the number one ingredient is always water, and the number two ingredient is always sodium lauryl sulfate. An irritant that's carcinogenic. Why would you want to be putting that on your skin? But most people just don't know. I mean, a lot of people say, well, if that was so dangerous, it wouldn't be allowed. It's like, well, that's an interesting one. And again, don't want to keep on about it, but I talk a bit more about that in my book, how, these regulatory agencies, they're just bought and paid for. You can look at all of them. So the medical agencies, you look at who funds these agencies? It's the pharmaceutical companies.
And usually when they leave the FDA, they're in a big position with the big pharma. Yeah.
But it's the same in all industries. The telecoms industry, you can look at all of them that, people go, oh, well, that wouldn't be the case if they were dangerous. What about cigarettes? What about alcohol? If they're going to make money, they'll be allowed. Right? It's very rarely that, there are some good things. I mean, seatbelts in cars is a good thing, but a lot of the time people think because something's legal, it's healthy, and unfortunately, that's not the case.
Take full control of your thing. So just on the 5 books, are the 5 kind of related to acne, or they are on different topics?
They're on different topics. So the first 3 that I wrote were anatomy books, but anatomy with a theme. So the first one was on conditioning to play sport. The second one was on yoga. And the third one was on sports injuries. So as well as learning, how to condition for sport or how to deal with sports injuries, it teaches you the anatomy of, like, if you're doing a certain exercise, what muscles that working, things like that. Book number 4 was on tennis conditioning, so that's very specific to tennis. And then the fifth one is on acne. I have produced another book, but I didn't really, I don't class that as a proper book because I didn't publish it. I gave it away for free. And that was called, are you ready for this?
The free book?
A Coronavirus Survival Guide.
Oh, very good.
And I wrote that in the first 7 weeks of lockdown in 2020 because I smelt a rat from day one. And I started digging and I uncovered quite a lot of stuff, shall we say. And I wanted to warn people as to what was going on and what was to come. And let's just say it got mixed reviews. A lot of people couldn't thank me enough, and a lot of people called me all kinds of childish names, like Granny Killer and jelly brain conspiracy theorist and things like that. And again, the book is backed up with tons of scientific references. It wasn't, I wasn't just making things up or, getting my sources from Karen on Facebook. It was properly scientifically referenced. And, if people read it now, you'll look back and think, oh, okay. Yeah, it stood the test of time, what's in there, And again, it wasn't just, well, this is what's going on. It was also, well, what can I do to boost my own immune system so that I don't get sick, right? So yeah, I obviously don't have a good enough social life because I've written so many books. Maybe I need to get a real life.
Yeah, but I think the fact that you've went through such an ordeal from 13 years of age, and just by even changing one child's life that they don't have to do that, I'd say, how the goodness feeling and then rippling it out, and then knowing that the book, you might never even meet somebody, but somebody reads that book and goes, wow, because most of mine are like, I love reading. I read about 100 books, and it's like, I have totally changed how I think about everything based on information. It does not necessarily mean you read something and you believe it, or you have somebody on and you believe it, but it kind of puts the thought there and, research even further. And, when you do that, but listen, we definitely have to have you, that you're coming back a few times, because we can go deep into this. But what I want to just mention is your podcast as well, because you touch on a few subjects. You may just let people know the name of your podcast and what you're covering in that.
Yeah, so it's called The Radical Health Rebel. And the main subjects I cover, I do cover a wide range, but mostly it's on skin health, gut health, and persistent pain or chronic pain. The other thing I just wanted to say about my recent book, so Eliminating Adult Acne for Good, the reason I wrote that, again, is because I see these people on social media saying, I've tried this, I've tried that. And people often contact me and they say, oh, I want you to help me, but they can't afford my rates, right? As one of my ex-clients famously said, I'm not the cheapest ticket in town, right? But then neither are Ferraris, right? The reason I wrote the book is because what I've put in the book is everything I would tell someone to do or advise someone to do that's got acne. I've put it all in the book, and it's £19.99. Right? So I've tried to make my coaching available for people without having to invest in my coaching. So I've tried to make it, as affordable as possible. And if people follow it step by step by step, they'll be doing exactly the same things that I teach my clients to do anyway.
Leigh, definitely have to get you back, because I love this topic, because I know that it affects everybody, and we can, we've only kind of touched on the surface. You might let people know how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, I mean, probably the best way is through my consulting website. So that's www.bodychek, which is spelled BODYCHEK.co.uk. On social media, Instagram, it's Radical Health Rebel, so the name of my podcast. On Twitter, it's just my name, Leigh Brandon, so Leigh is spelled Leigh, Brandon. They're probably the best ways of looking me up.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure I put all the links both on the audio and the video. Thank you very much, Leigh.
Great, thank you.
So that's all for the Awakening Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. Until next week, take care.
So I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. You'll find everything about me on bio.link/podcaster with all my podcasts, and you'll find it you see in the QR code in the graphic that's shown. I'd like again to thank my sponsors. So if you or someone you know struggling with anxiety and want to know how to be 100% anxiety free in 6 weeks without therapy or drugs, Daniel Packard's Anxiety Solution Program company offers a 6-week system that permanently solves anxiety at an astounding 90% success rate. People who join the program only pay at the end once they have clear, measurable results. If you're interested in learning more, go to permanentanxietysolutions.com, where you can book a free consultation with Daniel. Do you fight blood pressure and or want to get off the meds? Doctors are amazed at what Zona Plus can do. You can get a $50 discount with my code ROY, zona.com/discount/ROY, and you'll see it in the QR code as well as Daniel's QR code. Quality manufacturer of metal products for telecommunication and workshop equipment and other metal materials. You see the brochure there in the QR code, and let me know if you would like a quotation, shipped internationally at very competitive price. I'd like to thank all my sponsors and also all my listeners. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, really helps. And I also have a video on how to give a 5-star rating because a lot of people have wrote to me asking me that they don't know how to do that. Until next week, take care.